Hey everyone, I'm going to take a look at the 6 Dream Team Power Packs that have recently been released in eFootball. We've got packs for Arsenal, Barcelona, Man United, AC Milan, Bayern Munich and Inter Milan. I'm going to take a look at all these packs. I will put timestamps in the description for each of the packs, just like I normally do for players. So if you want to just hear about a particular pack, click on the description, there'll be a link to take you straight to it. To start off with, when you're looking at any of these packs, what you've got to bear in mind, you've got to ask yourself certain questions. Ask yourself first off, how many coins do I have? Can I afford to buy the pack or the packs that I want, depending if you want to buy more than one? And then think about how many coins you can have left over, because there are packs coming out every week, as in the legend packs, the club selections, player of the week. Obviously, there's packs, all kinds of packs every week. So have a real think about how many coins you've got, and then obviously weigh up all the other factors that we're going to look at. Think about your GP as well, because with all these packs, you get a manager. Most of them have been boosted, but they're all 85 at most. And there are GP versions of managers available without having to buy these packs. If you've got enough GP, and if you're not too bothered about the players in the packs, it might be better to get one of the managers. So we'll just have a little look at the GP managers, the best ones available. So just to show you them here, possession, Guardiola goes to 87, 500,000 GP. Quick counter, you can get Klopp at 87 as well, 480,000 GP. Long ball counter, you can get Diego Simeone. He goes to 85, 320 grand. And then if you want to play out wide, you got Tommy Tuchel goes to 85, he's 290 grand. So just keep in mind when you're looking at these packs, these are the only 4 play styles that any of the managers in these packs use. There are none with long ball. If you want a long ball manager, Sean Dyche is available for about 200 grand, but these are the only 4 play styles in any of these packs that we're going to look at. So keep these managers in mind as an alternative when you're looking at whether they're worth it for the amount of coins that they're going to cost. Then also have a think about the players you got, because if it's not the manager, the other factor in these packs is obviously the players in the pack. So for example, if you're looking at Barcelona, go to your squad, filter Barcelona, look at the players you've already got. Are the players in the pack better than the versions of that you've already got? For example, I've already got a Sergio Roberto. Is the one in the pack better? I'll ask myself the same question of all the other players in the pack. And consider also which other players you've got. So if I'm building a Barcelona squad, there's only 11 players in the pack. I've got players like Busquets, Jordi Alba, Ferrer. They're not in the pack. So then that will help me to build up my squad if I'm doing a Barcelona squad. So just weigh up which players you've already got for that particular club. And if you've got existing versions of players in that pack, do you have a better version? Think about the contract. If you've got players whose contracts have already expired or they're due to expire soon, because if that's the case, then getting another version of that player could represent value simply for the fact that they'll be getting a 1-year contract. So there are a lot of questions you need to ask yourself in terms of whether it's worthwhile getting these packs. And of course, with the manager, which play style do you use? Do they suit your play style? Because if they don't, it might be a waste of coins. But we'll jump in now to the first of these packs. We'll start with Arsenal. So Mikel Arteta, we've got a possession manager. He's got 85 for possession. They've boosted him from his normal version. So the normal Arteta only has 76 for possession. He's been boosted to 85. So that means your collective strength will be higher in your game plan. So in effect, the players in your team will get higher rated. They'll get more of a boost from this version of Arteta if you use possession. As a backup, he does also have 71 quick counter, 73 out wide. He also has 68 long ball counter. I'm not sure about going below the 70 mark, but certainly out wide and quick counter. If you're really desperate, you could switch from possession to one of those two, and you would see a decrease in your collective strength, so your players wouldn't be getting as much of a boost. But if you're desperate, you do have that as an emergency kind of backup plan. But I think for the most part, people will be sticking to possession with this guy. Each of the managers in these packs have a special booster effect where one attribute on all of your players will get a boost of 1. Now, with Arteta, that's low pass. So all the players you play with this guy as your manager, their low pass attribute will go up by 1. For me personally, a boost of 1 when the attributes go up to around about 100, you're talking about a 1% increase on one attribute. I don't think that's significant enough. I don't think that's enough to really constitute a selling point. So for me personally, I'm not paying too much attention to that. It's better than nothing, but I don't think it's a big deal. I'm mainly just looking at these values here, and especially their main value, because they've all been boosted to 85 if they're not already 85 for one of their playstyle ratings. Coaching affinity, so players under 23 will get 100% increase in the XP they get. This really is only really significant if you're going to be doing a lot of farming, but if you're going to be doing a lot of farming, you might as well just get a cheap manager for about 10,000-20,000 GP, because there are cheap managers available who'll give you exactly the same amount of a boost, and that would just be, it's just not really a valid reason to to want to get the manager. But it's just there so that you know you're mainly looking at this, and if you're really bothered about the special boost, you're looking at that as well for the low pass increase in the case of Arteta. But possession 85 is the main thing to look at there. And then it's the players. So what I've done with the players, I've got all the players listed across here. The big number underneath each card is the highest, is the maximum overall rating of that card. That's how high that card will go. The little italic number just underneath, that's the maximum overall of the base card. So the first two numbers show you how much this card is boosted from its base version. So for example, Ramsdale is the regular base version of him, goes to 91. This one goes to 94. So you can see how much he's boosted. And then underneath that, each player, you've got a list of the maximum overalls of all the previous boosted versions of that player. So with Ramsdale, 94 is the highest there's been of him. There's been 194 before. The rest have all been lower than that. So you can see this list down here just gives you a bit of context into how much value this particular version of Ramsdale represents for you. So if you want to have a look through all these numbers and really weigh up how much value you're going to get from each of these cards, this is the time to pause the video and just have a look across at all these numbers. I'll have a quick run through myself. So as I say, they're Ramsdale, best version we've had of him, so that's good. Gabriel Magalhaes, again, highest rated version we've had of him, so that's a good version of him. Saliba, same again, 96, the highest rated version we've had of Saliba, so that's a really good version of Saliba. We've had one better version of Ben White, but outside of that, we've not had a higher one than this one, so it's a good version of Ben White, if not the best. Tomiyasu, we've had a 95, I think that's the legendary version. There's also been a 94. The other three have been 92, so with this one going up to 93, it's around about middle of the road. So it's a good version of Tomiyasu, but certainly not the best. Declan Rice, we've had three 96s before. There have been a couple of 93s and 94, and then two 95s in the middle, which is where this one lies at 95. So it's not the best version we've had of Declan Rice, but not far off. Odegaard, same situation. There's been a 97. There's only been one as high as 96 before that, which is what this is. So it's a pretty good version of Odegaard, if not the best. Saka, joint best version we've had of him, so that's a good version of Saka. Martinelli, 95, joint best version we've had of him, so again, that's a good version of him. Kai Havertz, the only version of Havertz we've had that's better than this one was a recent one, which was a whole player. Went to 95. This one goes to 94. I think he's a deep lying forward now, so might not be the best version of Havertz, but certainly it's a pretty good one. And then finally, Gabriel Jesus, we've had two 96s before, so it's not the best, but round about middle of the road. So it's a good version of Gabriel Jesus, but not quite the best. So on the whole, it's going to be the same case of each of these packs. It comes down to your situation. How many coins do you have? GP, what player style do you want to use? And then which players do you have for this club? Do you have, similar, do you have a better version of any of these players? Do you have players who are already playing these positions who are better? Only you really know how much value these represent to you. So hopefully these numbers here and everything I'm saying is going to give you a bit of information, a bit of context to help you to make a decision. But on the whole, I'd say this is a pretty good pack. I think most of these players are pretty good. Good strong pack in terms of the players. And if you want a possession manager, if you don't want to spend the GP getting Guardiola, then obviously that's a good manager for you as well. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good strong pack on the whole. So moving on from Arsenal, Barcelona is next. So again, possession, and we got the same as Arteta, 85 for possession. So Xavi's been boosted by 5. They've boosted his quick counter by 8. So you do have a backup plan there if you're desperate, but it is very much a backup plan when you are desperate, because you will get a decrease to your collective strength. So your players won't be boosted quite so high. So keep that in mind. You're going to be playing possession game for the most part. Again, I'm going to repeat the same thing for each of these because some people are going to skip to a certain pack and they might miss me saying on a previous pack. I don't personally think this boost you get in each of these managers is significant. It's better than nothing, but +1 on one attribute for each player I don't think is a big deal. I don't think it's going to be particularly noticeable, but if you are interested in that, +1 is better than nothing, like I say, and it's ball control for each player. So there's your boost there. And again, for all these managers, if you're going to just be farming, you might as well just buy a cheap manager for about 10,000-20,000 GP because they will have the exact same effect if you're going to be farming. But if you do use this manager, if you're going to get him anyway, and if you do farm with him, 300% increase in midfielders is not bad. But then on to the players. And again, I'll repeat myself if anyone skipped past the previous ones. You've got the maximum overall of each of these cards with the biggest number underneath here. So 95 is the maximum overall for this ter Stegen. The italic number underneath, that's the maximum overall of the base version of that player. So this ter Stegen is 2 higher than his base version that you can buy with GP. And then what you see underneath that for each player, you've got a list of all the previous boosted versions of the player, the maximum overall rating of those previous versions. So that should hopefully give you some context into how much value these players represent to you. If you want to have a look through all these numbers and have a think about them and assess them all, now's the time to pause the video for a minute. But I'll quickly run through them all. So ter Stegen, we've had a couple of 96s. So this is not the best ter Stegen we've had, but 95 is still pretty good. Koundé, likewise, we've had a 96, but then we've had a bunch of 95s. That seems to be par for the course. So again, not the best Koundé, but a pretty good one. Christensen, joint best version of Christensen that we've had. So if you like Christensen, that's a good card for you. Sergio Roberto, 93 is not the best, but it's the best version of Sergio Roberto we've had. So if you like Roberto, or if you really want him for your Barcelona squad, that's as good as you're going to get. Cancelo's disappointing. We've had a 97 and 2, 3, 4 95s of Cancelo previously. So 94 is certainly not the best Cancelo we've had. So it's a bit disappointing, but still, it's still a very good card. He's a very good player, Cancelo. If you like him as a fullback finisher, it's a good card. It's just clearly not the best we've had. So a little bit disappointing. Pedri, likewise, not the best we've had. We've had a bunch of 96s. This one's only 95. So it's around about the middle of this list here where it fits in. So not the best, but still a good one. Gundogan, likewise, we've had a 96, but 95 is still a pretty good version of him. Gavi, again, we've had a 96, so it's 2 lower than the previous version of him. We've also had a 95, so it fits in around the middle of this list. So it's a good version of Gavi, but again, not the best. And likewise, De Jong, we've had a 96 of De Jong. I think that was the Netherlands national pack. And then there's been a few 95s, which is where this one slots in. So not the best, but again, still a good version of him. And João Felix, same situation. We've had 2 96s, the rest are 94s. So it fits in around the middle of that list. It's a good version of Felix, if not the best. And then finally, Lewandowski. He's getting on a bit, so you expect it's probably not going to be the best version of Lewandowski that we've had before. We've had 2 98s, we've had a bunch of 97s, the rest 96. So this is technically the joint worst version we've had of Lewandowski out of all the boosted versions, but 96 is still pretty high. So it's a good card, but certainly not the best version of Lewandowski that we've had. So on the whole, I'll say this for each of these packs, it comes down to your personal situation. Which Barca players do you already have? Do you have better versions of these players? Do you have versions of these players but their contracts are running out or they're not as good as these versions? Do you use possession as your playstyle? Depending on the answer to those questions and how much coins you've got, how much GP, only you know really whether this pack represents value to you. Hopefully all this information here will help you to make that decision. But for me personally, I don't think this is the best pack. It's a good pack. You know, you look at these numbers, objectively it's pretty good, but it could be better. So it's slightly disappointing, but still, I think for a lot of Barcelona fans, it will still be worth picking up. So moving on from Barcelona, Man United. So we've got Erik ten Hag. We've got long ball counter at 85. That's been boosted by 10. He's normally only 75, so that's a good boost he's got there. They've actually boosted us out wide by 1 from 69 to 70. That was really generous. So if you're desperate to change your play style at any point, in an emergency, you could dip down to out wide. But as I've said with all these packs, if you do that, you will see a decrease to your collective strengths. Your players' ratings will be a little bit lower. So you do have that there, but I think essentially most people are going to be sticking to long ball counter. Again, I say this for all these packs. I'll repeat it for anyone who hasn't heard me say it about the previous one. +1 increase on any attribute across your team is not significant in my opinion. That's just my opinion. I don't think it's going to be noticeable, but it's better than nothing. So you will get +1 speed on all your players. So if that appeals to you, it could be good news for you. And then again, I'll repeat myself again, but coaching affinity only really matters if you're farming, and if you're going to just be farming with a manager, you might as well just pick one up for cheap for about 10,000-20,000 GP. There are plenty of cheap managers who will give you the exact same effect, but what you will get from this version of Ten Hag, young players will get 100% increase of XP. So there you go. So there's the manager, and then the players. Again, if you've not heard me say this about one of the previous packs, the big number here is the maximum overall of this particular card. The smaller italic number underneath, that is the maximum overall of the base version of the card. So if you buy it on an hour GP, you can get up to 92, but this version goes up to 94. And then the list of numbers underneath, that is all the previous boosted versions of this card, the maximum overall rating of those cards. So all the previous boosted versions have gone up to 93, 93, 93, and 2 94s. So this list, all these numbers here, should give you a little bit of context as to how much value each of these cards will represent to you. So if you want to have a look through all these numbers and have a think about how good these cards are for you, this is a good time to pause the video and do so. I'll just have a quick run through the players myself. So Onana, as I say, there he goes to 94. That's as high as any version of him that we've had. So that's a good version of Onana. Lisandro Martinez, we had a 90. I think that's before he joined Man U from quite a while ago. We've had two 94s though, and this only goes to 93, so it's a little bit disappointing, but still, it's only one lower, and it's still going to be a good version of him. Varane, this is the joint highest version of Varane, so that's a good version of Varane. This is the first boosted version of Lindelof that we've had, so if you've been waiting for a boosted version of Lindelof, it's 3 higher than his base card, so that'll be nice for you to have. Wan-Bissaka is an interesting one because it's the highest rated version of Wan-Bissaka we've had, but also there aren't that many good defensive fullbacks knocking around. If you like that playstyle on a fullback, and if you want a fullback who's going to be strongest in defensive areas, I think that could be a really valuable card for you. So I think that Wan-Bissaka card is a valuable card, probably one of the most valuable cards in this pack, in addition to the fact it's the highest rated version we've had of Wan-Bissaka. This is the joint highest rated version of Casemiro we've had, so I think that's an excellent card. Eriksen, we've had a 94, the rest are 92s though, so not the highest rated version of Eriksen we've had, but still a pretty decent one. Bruno Fernandes, we've had about 1,000 versions of him so far. We've had some 95s down there, so with this one only going to 94 is a bit disappointing, but still, it's not a bad version of him, but it's just not the best. Mason Mount, we've had a 96 and a 95, so it's not the best version of him that we've had either, but still a decent version of him, if not the best. Marcus Rashford, we've had a 96 and a 95. I think the 96 was the legend version we had of him, and the 95 might have been a Showtime, possibly. All the previous versions have been 93 or lower, so at 94, it's not the best version of Rashford we've had, but it's certainly still a pretty good one. And then lastly, Højlund. We've only had one feature version of him. That was that nominating contract a little while ago. 92 is what that went to. This goes to 93, so not a massive boost from that, but still, it's the best version of Højlund that has been in the game so far. So if you want a boosted version of Højlund, you'll be very happy with that guy. So yeah, on the whole, I'll say of all these packs, it ultimately comes down to your situation, how many coins you've got at GP, what your play style is that you like to use, and then what players you've got in terms of existing versions of these players, how much contract they've got left, whether they're better or worse than these versions of the players, and what players you've got in general. Are these players going to be getting into your team? Only you know that. So again, hopefully all these numbers and all the information I'm giving you is going to help you to make your decisions. But for me personally, I think on the whole, this is a pretty good, strong pack. Not all the players are particularly high rated, but there are some interesting ones. Like I say, I think Wan-Bissaka is a valuable one. Højlund might only go to 93, but I think he's a very interesting card to pick up. He's very quick and powerful. Personally, if I'm going to get one of these packs, I think it would probably be this one, even though I'm not a Man U fan. I just think it's got some good quality players and some very interesting ones in there as well that are a little bit different. So yeah, for me personally, a pretty good, strong pack, but up to you whether it's going to be one you want to pick up. Then moving on from Man United, we've got AC Milan, and we have Pioli, who is a quick counter manager. So both the Milan clubs have a pack in these power packs, and both the managers are quick counter. 85 for Pioli. So Pioli's had a boost of 10 on that. He's normally 75, so if you've got an existing version of Pioli, this is a significant upgrade. He's also got 75 for out wide. He's already 75 out wide on the regular version of him, but that does mean your backup plan there. Again, you'll get take a bit of a hit on your collective strength, so your players will be getting a bit of a decrease to their boost. But if you're desperate, you do have that there as an option, but essentially as a quick counter manager. As I'm saying with all these managers, I don't personally believe that this boost that you get here, +1 on one attribute of all your players, I don't consider that to be much of a selling point. I don't think that's going to be particularly noticeable, but it's better than nothing, and if you're interested in that, you will be getting +1 to tackling on all your players. And then the coaching affinity. Again, I'll repeat myself, but with each of these managers, they're not worth getting just to farm with, because all managers have some kind of affinity. With Pioli here, old players over 30 will get 100% increase, but you can get any cheap manager about 10, 20,000 GP. There'll be managers around that price with the same effect. So I don't think this is overly significant in the context of these packs, but that is the boost you will get for XP. Then on to the players. So again, to repeat myself in case you've not listened to me talk about the previous packs, this big number here, that's the maximum overall rating of this particular card. The number underneath in italic here, that is the maximum overall rating of the base version of that player that you can buy with GP. So if you get Maignan with GP, it goes to 92. This one goes to 94. So you see how much of a boost you get from the regular version. Then the list of numbers down here, that is the maximum overall rating of all the previous boosted versions of this card. So that should give you some context into how much value this particular card will represent. So if you want to have a look through all these players and consider how much value they represent to you, pause the video now and have a look. But I'll just have a run through it quickly myself. So Maignan, we've had a 96. I think there may have been a Showtime version. The rest have been 94 with 193. So outside that 96, it's a pretty good version of Maignan, but it is a couple lower than the best that we've had. So not the best we've had. Malik Thiaw 94, that is by far the best version we've had of him. Simon Kjær, again, it's the best version we've had of him. Calabria, it's not the best version we've had of him. We've had a 94. I actually have that 94, and I've got to say it's really good. It's a really good, solid right back. He's got a bit of everything. He's one of the best right backs I've got. This one only goes to 93. It's only one lower, though, so this probably should still be a pretty good right back. Then Theo Hernandez, left back. I've got a few versions of him. You know what you're getting from him. He's not got a lot of defensive ability, but going forward, he can be deadly. He's got great pace. He's very good going forward. This one only goes to 95, though. We've had a 97. We've had two 96s as well. We've had a bunch of 94s as well, though, so it's kind of middle of the road. It's a good version of Theo, but it's certainly not the best that we've had. The central midfielders are interesting with Milan because you need to look at these things objectively. Objectively, 3 central midfielders, all at 92. That's not great. They're barely 5 stars, so it's really not a great central midfield selection. But the flip side to that is you've got the first boosted version of Krunic, the first boosted version of Loftus-Cheek that we've had, and it's only the third boosted version we've had of Rangers, and it's the joint best. So really, it depends which way you look at it. 3 centre midfielders who really aren't that great, or to look at it another way, you got the best version that we've had so far of all 3 of them. So for Milan fans, that might be quite appealing, to be honest. But looking at it objectively, if you're not a Milan fan, it's really not a great midfield selection you got there. But outside of the legendary version of Rafa Leao that we've had, this is the joint best version of him that we've had in the game so far, and he is fantastic. Pulisic, a similar type of player. He's pacey, he's dribbly, but he lacks end product. It depends what kind of player you like, but if you do like Pulisic, it's the joint best version of Pulisic that we've had in the game. And then Giroud, again, joint best version of Giroud we've had in the game. Depends if he's your kind of player, but if he is, that's about as good as you're going to get of him. So it's an interesting selection. Like I say, if you're a Milan fan, if you really wanted boosted versions of some of these players, there haven't been many opportunities, if any, to get versions of players like Loftus-Cheek and Krunic especially. So it might really appeal to you, but I think outside of Milan fans, it might be a little bit disappointing. Some of those ratings on the players aren't the best, but it just comes down to your situation, what kind of coins and GPs you've got, the play style you want to use, and the players that you've got. Could be very appealing for a lot of Milan fans, but outside of that, I don't think it's the best pack, to be brutally honest. And then from Milan, we go to Bayern Munich. So, Tommy Tuchel, we have an out-wide manager. He's got 85 for out-wide. He already had 85 for out-wide on his regular version, so keep that in mind. Although they have boosted his long ball counter from 55 to 70. That's a big boost. They've gone up by 15 on that. So, you do have a backup plan of long ball counter. But again, if you switch from out-wide to long ball counter, that takes you down from 85 to 70. The collective strength and your game plan will take quite a dip. You will notice your players will lose a bit of their boost, so keep that in mind. But if you're desperate, you do have that there, but for the most part, you're going to be sticking with out wide with this manager. Again, I said this with each of these packs. In my personal opinion, I don't think this boost of 1-to-1 attribute on all your players is really significant or noticeable. I don't really find it that interesting, but it's better than nothing. And if you are interested, you get +1 on physical contact for all the players in your team when you use this manager. And then again, to repeat myself again from previous packs, coaching affinity, it's just really for if you're farming. And if you are just going to be farming, then you might as well just buy a cheap manager for about 10,000-20,000 GP. They all have the same kind of effect. But if you are interested in the coaching affinity of this manager, 5-star players will get 100% boost on their XP. So, onto the players. And again, I'll repeat what I've said about the previous packs in case you've not listened to me speak about the previous packs. This big number here is the maximum overall rating of this particular card. The italic number just underneath, that's the maximum overall rating of the regular version of this card. So if you buy All Right with GP, it goes up to 87. But if you get this version, you'll go to 92. The list of numbers underneath is all the maximum overall rating of all the previous boosted versions of this card. So that gives you some context into how good this card is and what kind of value it represents to you. So if you want to have a look through these numbers and assess how good these players are, this is a good time to pause the video and have a look. But I'll have a run through the players myself. So you start with Ulreich. This is the first feature version we've had of Ulreich. So if you've always wanted a featured version of Ulreich, Merry Christmas. All your dreams have come true, but 92 is not brilliant. So objectively not a great card, but if you want a featured Ulreich for your Bayern squad, happy days. Upamecano, we've had a 96 before. I believe that was the legend version. Outside of that, 94s and 92s, and this is a 95. So outside of that legendary version, that's a pretty good version of Upamecano. Kim, similar situation. There's been a 96. I believe that may have been a Showtime version. All the rest have been 94 or below. So this is the joint best version outside of that 96 that we've had. It's a pretty good version of Kim. Alphonso Davies, we've had a 96. I believe that was a legendary version. So again, outside of that, it's the joint best version we've had of Davies. So it's a good version of him. Mazraoui is an almost identical version to the only other boosted version that we've had, which was quite recent. So it goes up to 93. If you didn't get that one and you want a version of him, it'll be good for you. But 93 is not the best. It's not a brilliant card looking at it objectively. But like I say, the joint best version of Mazraoui that we've had if you do want him. Kimmich, a little bit disappointing. We've had 3 97 rated Kimmiches in the past. We've had a 96 as well. Below that, all 95s, and that's where this one falls. So he's the joint worst. Looking at it technically, it's the joint worst version we've had of Kimmich in terms of the boosted versions. So it is a bit disappointing, but it's still a good card. Likewise, Goretzka, it's the joint worst boosted version of Goretzka that we've had, so it's a bit disappointing. Still a good card. I've got a version of Goretzka that goes to about 95, and I have to say it's fantastic. He's a brilliant, big, strong all-rounder in the middle of the park, but this does only go to 93, so it should still be pretty good, but obviously not as good as some of the previous ones, so a bit disappointing. Likewise with Sané, we've had some 93s, 94s, but we've had a couple of 96s as well, so this one only being 94, not the worst version we've had, but certainly not the best either, so a little bit disappointing. And then Kingsley Coman, we've had a 97, which I believe was the Legend version. All the rest have been 94, so outside of the Legend, this is pretty much par for the course for Kingsley Coman. Thomas Müller, we've had 196, I think that was a nominating contract. All the rest 94 and below. So this one being 94, it's pretty much the joint best we've had outside of that nominating contract. So it's a good version of Müller. And I don't think there'll be too many more versions of Müller, certainly at this kind of level, because he is getting on a bit now. So might be a good one to pick up. And then Harry Kane, we had 197 rated Kane. I think that was a Showtime as well. Outside of that, they've all been 95. So this one being 96, that's a good version of Harry Kane. So on the whole, it's another mixed bag, this Bayern pack. You know, there are some where you look at objectively, you say Mazraoui at 93 is not the best right back you're going to get. He is versatile though. Ulreich at 92, clearly not exactly an elite level goalkeeper, but some good versions of some of the players there, like Upamecano and Kim. Slightly disappointing with some of them though. I think looking at Kimmich, Goretzka, Sané, a little bit disappointing those, but then again, you've got a good version of Kane. So it's a mixed bag, as with all these packs. It's going to come down to your situation. Which players have you already got? Have you got better versions of these players? Have you got worse versions? Have your versions got their contracts running out? It's just a question of what value it represents to you. But hopefully all this information on this pack helps you to answer that question. For me personally, it's a mixed bag, this pack. There's some good things about it, but some disappointing as well. And then the final pack, Inter Milan. So we've got Simone Inzaghi, Inter manager. As with Pioli, he's a quick counter manager. They've boosted them up to 85. That's a boost of 10. The regular version of Inzaghi only has 75 quick counters, so that's a big boost. They've also put his long ball counter up to 70. That's a boost of 5. So again, if you're desperate, you want to change your play style, you will see a decrease to your collective strength and game plan. But you've got that there as a backup if you're desperate. But again, you're probably going to stick to quick counter for the most part to get the maximum rating. And again, to repeat myself, I don't consider this boost that you get from these managers to be significant or noticeable enough. In my personal opinion, it's not worthwhile. But if you are interested in this, all the players in your team, when you use this manager, will get a +1 to their stamina attribute. And then again, coaching affinity. If you're just going to be farming, you might as well pick up a cheap manager for 10, 20,000 GP. You'll have the exact same effect. But if you do any farming with this guy, midfield players in your team will get a 300% increase to their XP. And then again, to repeat what I've said about previous packs, if you've not heard me say it in the previous pack reviews, the big number under each player is the maximum overall rating for this card. The smaller italic number just underneath, that's the maximum overall rating of their base card that you can buy with GP. So if you get someone with a GP, you can go to 92, but if you get this version of them, it goes to 94. And then the list of numbers underneath, that is the maximum overall ratings of all the previous boosted versions of this player. So you want to have a look through these numbers and assess these players, now's the time to pause the video and do that. But I'll have a quick run through the players myself. So Summer, we've had 2 96s, the rest 94. So this one being 94, it's not a great version of Summer. I've had a look at it. His reach is pretty low. He's quite short. I don't think it's a particularly good version of Summer. I'm not too keen on it myself. De Vrij, however you say it, we've had 2 94s, this one 93. So it's technically the worst version we've had of him, although it's only one lower than the previous two. So not a bad version of him, but certainly not the best. Bastoni, this is a disappointing version of him. We've had a 97, we had a 96, we had a 95, but this goes with the lowest rated ones of 94. So the joint lowest rated of all the boosted versions we've had of Bastoni, a bit disappointing, even if it's not a bad card. Dumfries, good version of him. We've had some 93s and some 92s. This is one of the 93s, so joint best version of him that we had. Darmian, we've only had one feature version of him before. I think that was quite a while ago, went to 90. This one goes to 93, so that's a good version, a big boost on Darmian from the previous versions of him that we've had. DiMarco, though, is disappointing. We had a 91, which I think was quite a while back, but we've also had a 94 and two 95s, but this is only 93, so it's not the best version we've had of DiMarco. That's a little bit disappointing. Fratesi, there's only been two feature versions of him, 91 and 93. This one's 93, so the joint best version we've had of him, so pretty decent. Çalhanoğlu, arguably the pick of the pack. I think it is the pick of the pack personally, because you look at the previous versions we've had of him, we had a few 95s and then some 94s, a 92 and a 91. This is the joint best version we've had of Çalhanoğlu, so that's a good version of him. Barella, we've had a few 96s and the rest are all 95. This is 95, so it's not the best version we've had of him, but it's still a good version of him and a very good card. Lautaro Martinez, we've got about 1,000 versions of him before. There's been a 97, which I believe was the legend version. A couple of 96s and then 95 down all the way down to 93. So 96, one of the best versions of Lautaro we've had. Not the best, but still a very good version of him. And then lastly, Marcus Thuram. We've only had one feature version of him in a recent France pack. That went to 94, so this one at 93 is not the highest. It's only one lower though, so it's still a decent version of a player who we've not had many featured versions of. So again, some good, some bad. Çalhanoğlu, the joint best version of him. Barella's a good card. Lautaro is a good version of him, but then DiMarco is quite disappointing. Bastoni is quite disappointing. I think Sommer's quite disappointing. It comes down to which version of these players that you've already got. How badly do you want these players? Are you an Inter fan? If you're an Inter fan, you don't have many versions of these players, then it might be really appealing to you, especially if you use quick counter, of course, because that's the play style for the manager. It just comes down to your own situation. So hopefully I've helped with some of this information to help you to make your decision. For me personally, not the best of the packs. There are some positives to it, but also some downsides as well. So there you go. That's all 6 of the packs. So it's an interesting selection. Personally, if I'm going to buy one of these packs, I don't support any of these teams. I would probably go for the Man U pack. I think that's an interesting one. There's some good cards in there looking at it objectively. I think Wan-Bissaka is an interesting one as well, because there aren't many very good defensive fullbacks. But as I've said, with each of these packs, it comes down to your situation. What players have you got? Which play style do you use? How much GP and coins do you have? Is it worth getting the pack? Is it better to get one of the GP managers I showed at the beginning? It comes down to what you really need and what value each pack represents to you. But hopefully the information I've given you in this video and my opinions have helped you to make your decisions. Thank you as always for watching the video. Hopefully it's been of use to you. I'll see you next time.